Welcome to the Indian Newslink podcast.
Good afternoon. This afternoon we have the honor of the visit of Police Commissioner Andrew Costa, a dear friend with whom we've had the honor and privilege of working for many, many years. Commissioner, welcome to the videocast and podcast. You have almost reached towards the tail end of your term. You're remitting office in about 4 weeks' time.
Yes.
Can you take us through your journey in the police, how it has been from the time you started, where all you have been, and what kind of challenges you have faced in your career?
Thank you. Well, it's marvellous to join you today, Venkat, and have a reflective conversation. So I've been in police now for 28 years. In fact, it will be 28 years to the day that I started at the Royal New Zealand Police College at the point that I finish my career. So I've done many different roles. I started out in South Auckland, Counties Manukau district at the Mangere station,
Right.
and I did most of my operational policing out there. A wonderful, diverse district, which is very busy, a great place to learn. I moved from frontline policing into the CIB and undertook then a range of investigative roles, including more covert national security style operations after 9/11. I had a year out studying, or at least practicing law. I did a law degree while I was in the police. I spent a year working for Meredith Connell, which is the Crown Solicitor's office here in Auckland.
Right.
And then came back, frontline leadership roles in South Auckland, Armed Defenders Squad, before moving on to Area Commander in Auckland City Central.
Yeah, that I remember very well.
Yes, and of course that is when we would have met, if not before. And Auckland City Central was, a great area.
Right.
The core of our biggest city. Lots happening there. A great experience. I spent nearly 5 years there before moving to the Southern District Command, looking after Otago and Southland. Very contrasting areas in terms of their geography and what's happening in them. I moved to Police National Headquarters in 2015 and took up responsibility for implementing our payroll project at a point when it was struggling.
Right. Yes.
And I had a year out with the Ministry of Justice as Deputy Chief Executive, and then other sort of roles back in police, including in our strategy and partnerships area before taking up the role as Commissioner. So a very varied career, and I've loved every job I've done. I could have spent
Commissioner,
longer.
since the time you joined, the demography of New Zealand has changed, and we become more multicultural, multifaceted. And with that kind of change comes the challenge of law enforcement. What are the challenging moments that you have had? Have there been any major issues that you faced in the police and also as the police commissioner?
Policing is a very unpredictable role, and so on any given day or any given shift you don't know what you're going to deal with. And of course frontline policing is exciting, and there are lots of different things that you face. I think in many ways my biggest challenges though have been since I have occupied leadership roles and trying to balance the competing interests that come into play. We had a lot of those through the period of COVID particularly. I think there are many diverse views on what police should be doing and how we should operate, and that's probably some of the hardest things to resolve. We're probably a more polarised community than we have been in the past. And so I think some of the biggest challenges come from that, really, from public perspectives and perceptions about policing and about crime, and as a leader, how you front those issues.
Now, as well as ensuring the safety of communities, you also have the responsibility of ensuring the safety of the people in the police force. Have the dangers or the hazards for the police increased, not because of any reason, because of simply the diversity and the kind of crime that's been rising? Do you have cause to worry that our police are getting more and more unsafe?
And policing has inherent risk because we are dealing with difficult people in difficult circumstances. I believe policing in New Zealand is still relatively safe. However, bad things happen. 3 months into my term as Commissioner, we lost Constable Matthew Hunt in a shooting at the roadside, and that sent shockwaves through the organisation. He was the first one to be killed in over 10 years, but any time we have something like that, our people really feel it. And so we've worked very hard since then with a lot of investment to improve training for our staff and the tactics and techniques that will keep them safe on the front line. There's no doubt though, our environment is more hazardous than it was when I joined. We see more firearms being used by particularly gang members, and our staff deal with a range of very difficult situations every day.
Two things arise here, Commissioner. One is the rise in gang crime, and the number of people contributed more so by 510 Australia, and the fact that the firearm, the police are not armed enough is the perception. So how do you see future policing, especially since you're leaving the force? How do you see it emerging as vis-a-vis the rising gang crime and the unsafe feeling of the police?
Certainly gang crime has been very prominent in the last 5 or more years. Our environment shifted a lot as a consequence of Australian deportees, and they led to new groups being established which increased the tensions within the gang scene, and of course those tensions often turn around the supply of drugs and who controls those markets. Thankfully, gang violence is still largely directed between gang members, so gangs still understand that police have a job to do, and for the most part respect police when we are doing that job, and long may that continue. And that's partly the reason why we have formed the view as the police executive that it is best for police to remain, for the time being anyway, an unarmed police service. The environment is finely balanced, and we believe our current ways of working are keeping us as safe as we can be in that environment. Of course, if we see a situation where violence is being directed towards police staff in their interactions, then that would need to be revisited. New Zealand Police, though, have very good access to firearms when they need them, and unlike some jurisdictions, we have not only pistols available to our staff but also rifles, and very often that's the most appropriate weapon to be using in the kind of environments that New Zealand Police operate in. So I'm happy that we have done absolutely everything we can to keep our people safe. One assault is one too many, but we have put a lot of effort into this area over time.
What was your most frustrating moment as a police commissioner?
The role itself for the operational part of what we do is relatively more straightforward than managing the public and political environment that swirls around policing. And of course we know that we've had a very law and order focused election, and it can be difficult with the obligations that we have, and as you know, I have as Commissioner and as public servants have, to avoid the situation where or to speak openly and honestly into the politics of the situation. So it is always managing the public dialogue on policing issues, I think, is the most challenging part. We're probably in a world now where not all of the information that circulates is fair and accurate, and social media has played a key part in this, and those are some of the challenges we have, balancing the fear of crime with the realities of what's actually happening.
Did you feel targeted?
No, I think that is putting it too strongly, because it's appropriate that there is public scrutiny of policing, and we expect there to be commentary and opinion about policing, but it is without a doubt the most challenging part of the role.
Commissioner, you came in at a time which was extremely difficult, not just for New Zealand but also for the rest of the world, because you came in at a time, from memory it was in April 2020, New Zealand was getting into the lockdown mode, and policing became even more critical during that period. And then a couple of years later, you had this Parliament standoff incident, which was one of the worst that we had in the history of New Zealand, as it were. That must have been one of the most tense few days that you had in Parliament. Looking back, how do you think you, as the Commissioner, managed the whole episode, as it were, and how did your people react to the situation?
COVID has defined my time in the role as Commissioner, whether it is the intense period of enforcing the lockdowns and the government requirements of that time, through to the protest, through to the long tail of COVID in terms of the criminal environment, be it the way young people have offended post-COVID, the level of anger and disappointment in the community about aspects of the COVID response. In terms of that intense period, I'm very proud of the way the organisation responded. Our people were very agile, and they adapted to what the circumstances required of them. But we know that the settings around COVID enforcement created huge tension in communities, and there were many people who felt very negatively impacted by that, particularly those who lost their jobs or felt excluded from the community because they were outside of the vaccination.
Do you think
system.
the public anger was taken against the police?
No, I think the public anger was taken to Parliament.
That was late. Oh, yes.
And that is the right place for a protest to come. Unfortunately, that protest was unable to be resolved other than by the use of force in the end. Of course, we tried to resolve that in the most peaceful way we could, and taking into account the fact that at times there were thousands of people on the grounds of Parliament, and a safe resolution in that circumstance was almost impossible. On the day we cleared the Parliament grounds, there were 268 people at the start of the day, and even with that small number and more than 500 police officers, you can see how difficult that situation was to resolve. In the end, when we look at the long-term outcomes from the policing of COVID, I think New Zealand got it as right as anybody. And if we look at Australia, they are still bearing the consequences of a very hard policing approach during COVID that has left many people feeling disaffected.
So do you think New Zealand police are softer than their counterparts elsewhere, or would you put it differently as more humane?
I'm not sure that the continuum of soft on crime or hard on crime tells us anything about whether the response is appropriate for achieving the outcomes we're trying to achieve. So I prefer to think about it as what is required in the situation in front of us in order to get the best outcome. Sometimes that will be able to be characterised as a hard policing response. Other times it might be characterised as a softer policing response. But in the end, it's trying to do the smartest thing to get the outcome we're trying to get.
In the last 5 to 6 years, Commissioner, we've seen how the police have handled a series of situations. If you go back a little, we can see how the police managed the earthquakes in 2011, and then March 15 to 2019, thereafter, COVID, so on and so forth. With all that, do you think retail crime was one of the worst challenges that you faced, or is it just a hype?
There are a mix of things happening there with retail crime. Firstly, there has been a genuine increase in the seriousness of retail crime and the offending patterns focused on retailers. Before COVID, we would have said that dwelling burglary is one of our most significant profit-motivated crimes. Through that COVID period, we actually saw less burglary, and that has continued to be lower than before, and retail crime has increased. So it's some displacement. But with that, a group of youth offenders who were particularly active after COVID, the group of kids disengaged from school roughly doubled through the COVID period, and those are the ones that we are most commonly dealing with. And so that's real, and it has impacted the community involved in those businesses, and we've had to respond to that. We have done that successfully with reducing ram raids, and we are getting on top of the aggravated robbery problem as well. Many of these young people we have arrested 5, even 10 times. And so police can only be part of the solution. We can apprehend the offenders, but then we need to make sure that we are able to do the right thing with them. The other thing that is happening there is there has been a big increase in reporting by the major retailers through an online platform that they now use. And so that can skew the statistics, but I don't want to take away from the fact there has been a genuine increase in that area.
What are the retailers telling you? Are they saying that they're still feeling unsafe? Are they telling you that you've got to get tougher? Although law enforcement is limited as far as the police, you can arrest, but you can't punish, because that's not your role.
That's absolutely right. What I'm mostly hearing from the retailers now is that they feel police have responded appropriately, and we're doing everything we can. I hear plenty of commentary about the court system and whether the results are right, whether the penalties are strong enough, or whether we're getting the right results with the young people responsible when it's young people. But I think most people are recognising that police have put a huge amount of effort into addressing this problem. But as you say, we're not the ones who decide the punishment.
Commissioner, arguably you lead the largest organisation in the country, almost 15,000 people, varying aspirations, varying degrees of excellence and so on. What kind of legacy do you think you're going to leave?
We have an outstanding police service by international standards. I have no doubt of this. When I engage with my colleagues internationally and I see the way police services are operating, many countries look to us for the progress we have made in our focus on crime prevention,
right,
and the progress we have made culturally, both in terms of diverse cultural competence, but also in terms of how we are inside the organisation and to the people we deal with. In a period where crime has been particularly challenging, some of that is less appreciated locally than it is internationally. My legacy, I believe, is an organisation that has an outstanding culture and the right mindset and attitude towards the people that we engage with every day. We have hugely built our capability in areas like investigation of organised crime, and we're getting some great results there. And we also have been through a period where we have uplifted the capability of the front line, particularly focused on their safety to deal with the environment that we face. But we all build on the shoulders of the people who went before us, and the organisation is bigger than one person. So,
is there any area, or are there any areas where you feel that you could have done more or better?
Oh, I think you'd be lying if you looked back on your time and said, I couldn't have done this better or that better. There are always things. But I don't have any regrets.
Would it be retail crime? Would it be drug haul? Would it be the general law and order situation? Where do you think you feel that you could have done better if you're asked to do it again?
One of the things that we have observed in recent times, I think the last 10 years, is a growing gap between perceptions of safety and actual safety.
Yeah.
And we can understand why this is the case. What you used to read about the next day in the newspaper, you now see on social media in real time, high resolution footage of crimes in progress. And so we feel much less safe than we ever have. Police needs to be actively managing the perceptions of safety. And one of the things we've done recently that I think is adding value is increasing our visibility in town centres, in public places, so that people can feel reassured. That's, to me, been a very effective thing. It's something that we have wanted to do for a long time, but it's only recently that we've been able to achieve it.
I think, Commissioner, you're moving into another space which I believe would be equally challenging and something on which New Zealand will be focusing its future. How much of you think your new role is going to be?
I'm excited by the new opportunity. It is
As the
as
Chief Executive.
the Chief Executive for the Social Investment Agency, Secretary for Social Investment. This role is, I believe, on a similar continuum to police. Police work a lot at the bottom of the cliff of social failure. The new role is about trying to get the settings right at the top of the cliff to get better outcomes for the large investment that the country has in social outcomes. So I will bring a lot of knowledge and understanding about what is happening in communities when things don't go well. So it's an exciting opportunity. I will miss police. It's a marvellous organisation, and I'll do a shameless plug for police recruitment, which is to say it's a career that I would recommend to any young person who has an interest in it. There's so much opportunity, and we need good people. So I will miss the organisation, but I'm delighted to be able to serve in a different way.
Miss you, Commissioner. We wish you all the best. We know that you're stepping on to another role which is equally challenging, and we wish you well, and we're sure that you will bring to bear your 28 years of experience in the police, and we are always there to support you. And thank you for visiting us, and we wish you all the best.
Thank you, Venkat. I really appreciate the relationship, particularly with our many diverse communities. So wonderful to be with you today.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Indian Newslink podcast.